Hello and welcome to Films for the Very First Time. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, is Casey McGeorge.
Oh, how's it going, everybody?
It's going good. We are on week five, episode five of season two. So next week is actually the 1/3 mark of the season, from what I understand, from what I was charting out. So next episode, whatever my next pick is, will be the 1/3 mark of the season. It's crazy. It feels like we just started, but um, yeah. So what are we discussing, Casey?
Alrighty, so today we are gonna go back to 1994. We're gonna join one of our favorite stars so far, Arnold Schwarzenegger, in a 1994 action comedy film called True Lies. Uh, so this was the third team up between Arnold Schwarzenegger and director
Hmm.
who also did the screenplay, James Cameron. The others being Terminator, Terminator 2. So let's see. 1994, I was 16 years old. Was in like my sophomore year of high school. I graduated in the class of 96. So I was a teenager. Um, didn't get to see it. I didn't get to see this when it was released in theaters, but this was a big one on video cassette afterwards, so I did get to see it then. This caused me to have a love of spies. Quick fun story. My senior year of high school, I was in a part of a youth group that would go to different schools and work with different other, like, I worked through the girls club, and we would go to, like, we would do, basically we were a peer teaching group, and we taught other teenagers about safe sex, HIV, AIDS education, teen pregnancy, stuff like that. So that year, we got to do a presentation at what was called the National Youth AIDS Conference. So we raised some money and we got to go spend like 3 or 4 days or whatever in Washington, D.C. It was after I saw this movie and I thought that everybody in Washington, D.C. was going to be a spy. So I would do stupid things because I'm 14 or 16, 18 years old. So, you know how in like spy movies, a lot of times you'll see him talking code words, the eagle lands at midnight. Stupid things like that.
Hmm.
I was going around DC saying stuff like that. Because for anybody who doesn't know, you will see a lot of people in suits and various things in various places in Washington, DC,
Yeah.
carrying briefcases. They probably just work for some random company or random organization. Like, or some of them could just be a government employee, but like a low level government employee because
Hmm.
that's where a lot of them work.
Yeah, they're everywhere. I was just there earlier this year, and yeah, it's I would say a very different vibe to any other city I've been to because of the government
It is a
there, right?
unique
Like
city.
yeah, very unique city. It's got the museums, it's got the people walking around. Not gonna lie, I loved seeing the Maryland license plates throughout the movie at times because I'm in Maryland. So that was I would keep looking at them like, oh, there's a
In all
Maryland license
fairness, like
plate.
you're right there. So it's not like if you saw Maryland license plate out where I'm at in California, that'd be a little different, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But
But I
like,
just like, I like the attention to detail there. They could have just put all DC license plates on there, but they threw in some Maryland
but
ones.
I was saying stupid stuff like that all the time, and then consequently, I think one guy was playing along and like said something like he put down his bag and walked away for a minute, and I was like, oh, I don't know what I got myself into, but we need to go. All right. So before I get more into the story, where were you in this in 1994, Jordan, and why have you not seen this movie yet?
July 15, 1994, I was 3 years old. um
You could maybe have, wouldn't be the best thing, but you could have taken maybe a 3-year-old Jordan to see this movie. I mean, I've seen people take younger children in much more inappropriate movies.
Yeah, there
Where
was a
then and
old in like Days of Futures Past, the X-Men movie. That was, you know, not that like, the content's an issue, but the baby was the issue. They were crying a
yeah,
lot.
then they end up crying and ruining the movie for a lot of other people. And look, I know I don't have a kid, but I know I don't have a kid, but I will say, like, look, I understand as a parent you don't always get a lot of time to go do a lot of these things,
Hmm.
and I understand that. But if the kid's like 2 or 3 years old, um, yeah, you don't get to come to the movie and then ruin it for the rest of us. That's all I'm saying. Like,
Two or
either you don't
three,
get to
two
watch
or
the movie.
three, I think is fine. My first movie, I was 2 years old when I went to see it, and I behaved. My
That's
nephews behaved in theaters. It's
that's that's the line. Like, I'd say two or
yeah.
three is kind of the line.
When
But
you have like a baby in a car seat, or like the that you're bringing into the theater, like the carrier. Um, one, I don't know how you're getting anything from it because anytime they cry, you're the one having to they would take them out of the theater and they would go and shush them and stuff. And I'm like,
they're not
you're
going to
missing the
sleep.
movie.
Yeah, you're not. They're not going to sleep because it's so loud in there.
Yeah, yeah. So you're gonna probably deal with a cranky baby the whole day afterwards too, because they'll be overtired and have trouble sleeping. But also, you're missing the movie that you paid money for because you're constantly out of the auditorium, like trying to get them settled. And
You're ruining the experience for the rest of us.
yeah, and then you're also doing that. So there's a lot of downsides to it. I the reason I probably haven't seen this movie is I don't know. Like my parents have seen it, but again, it's not one of those that we had like I don't think we've ever had this movie on like VHS or DVD. And then it is also rated R, so by the time I probably would have been able to watch this, um there was like bigger, I don't know, I would say bigger movies. Not that this one wasn't big, because this is actually like the first $100 million movie, which
Yeah,
is a crazy stat.
we'll get to that in a second. All right. So, uh, True Lies. A fearless, globe-trotting, battling secret agent has his life turned upside down when he discovers his wife might be having an affair with a used car salesman while terrorists smuggle nuclear warheads into the United States. As I said, it's a 1994 action comedy film written and directed by James Cameron, based on the 1991 French comedy film La Totale. Directed and screenplayed by James Cameron, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as Harry Tasker, Jamie Lee Curtis as his wife, Helen Tasker, Tom Arnold, Bill Paxton, Art Malik, the lovely and enchanting Tia Carrere, a young Eliza Dushku, which we will get to momentarily, and an appearance by Charlton Heston as Spencer Trilby. Did you recognize Charlton Heston? Charlton Heston?
No, I mean I saw his name in the credits, so I kind of knew it was going to be him, but I didn't like recognize him.
Did you get any vibes off of Charlton Heston?
The vibe I got was, why did they, what I would assume is spend a lot of money on getting Charlton Heston in this movie for like 3 scenes?
Okay. James Cameron personally called Charlton Heston to offer him a role. When Heston asked why, James Cameron responded, I need someone who can intimidate Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's be
Oh, that's
realistic.
interesting.
There's not many people who are kind of going to be able to give that vibe off, right? Also,
Sinbad.
yeah. Um, also, he was not originally planned to have an eye patch. He arrived the first day of filming with pink eye. The costume department did whatever they could to fix the problem. He also insisted on having the character named Trilby because that was his favorite hat brand. Which, when you're Charlton Heston, you can do that because you're Charlton goddamn Heston, right? Um, Also, they intentionally gave him the vibe of why is his name blanking right now in my head? Sweet baby Jesus. Uh, the appearance and traits of Spencer Trilby is based on Nick Fury. I don't know why I couldn't think of Fury's name.
Yeah, comic Nick Fury. Yeah,
Like Fury, he has an eye patch, the same mannerisms, as well as leading a peacekeeping organization. At one point,
and
James.
before I was gonna say before the Ultimate Universe in Marvel Comics, where it is when they made Nick Fury African American and they styled him after Sam Jackson in the Ultimate Universe, and then they actually got Sam Jackson, of course, to play him in the movies. In the regular 616 universe in the comics, Nick Fury was like a
Older white
a
guy.
white older white guy, kind of like salt and pepper hair or like white hair, with the eye patch.
At one point, James Cameron wanted to be a comic book penciler and does a lot of his own concept art. He even, I think we talked about this before, he even designed the entire T-800 endoskeleton. So anybody who watched this who might have been getting like Nick Fury vibes, or like you've kind of seen that character before but you can't really place it, that's probably why it was intentionally done on purpose. So back to some more things. Uh, Released in 1994, July 12th, 1994, at the Regency Village Theater out here in Los Angeles. Released worldwide July 15th, 1994. The box off, or the budget was between 100 and 120 million, which at the time was the most expensive movie ever made. Um, it was later, it was beat later that year or the next year by Waterworld. And then Cameron took it back not too long after that when he made Titanic.
Yeah.
The box office, $378.9 million that year, the third highest grossing film of 1994. You have any idea what the first two might have been?
94. I would say Lion King's up there.
Number one,
And oh geez, what else would have come out in 94? Comedy or drama?
drama,
Animated or live action?
live action.
Live action drama in 94? Oh, I don't know. I can't think of anything.
Forrest Gump.
Oh, that's right. It did release the same year, and actually, it beat Forrest Gump in True Lies opening weekend. But then I think Gump took it back over
Yeah, and
later.
then once again, we talked about before, back then movies had a much longer staying period in theaters. And then this was one of those that, like, after the first weekend, or Forrest Gump rather, was one of those after the first weekend, it kind of built and built. And then next thing you know, it's got like 500 something $1 million over there.
So third highest, that's pretty good. But like, is this a financial success with 120 million? You would think budgeting is like marketing budget is probably another 100 million,
I think
and then they
so.
get
I
300.
mean,
It
I
it
think
probably did
so.
make a profit, but yeah,
I
it's
mean, it might not have made
tighter.
like, yeah, like a $500 million profit or anything, but I think it made some sort of profit. I would
Yeah,
imagine.
maybe like probably like
Not
a
like
hundred
today
million.
where you have to, there's the budget, and then you have to add in like domestic distribution and stuff where that's another 100 million. Then you have to do like the rights in China and rest worldwide and all that other stuff, right?
Also,
So
I think this. Sorry, I think this
no,
movie probably is made up a lot of it anyway from DVDs, cable television stream, like all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
You know, Especially a movie back in the 90s because I feel like this is probably one that would have been a staple on like FX or Spike TV or USA Network, like on those type of channels.
yeah. Because in all fairness, there's not a lot of vulgar language in the movie.
Yeah,
Um,
just a couple F bombs that they would dub over with
yeah,
like
there's not a lot that
screw
they
it.
really would have to cut out for like a cable release or anything, right? So
Yeah.
you don't have to do too much to it. Unlike maybe a couple weeks ago, what was the podcast you just released? What did we watch?
Oh, Face Off.
Yeah, maybe Face Off. You probably have to do a lot more to cut it down to
Yeah.
get on cable or whatever. But this one, not too much. So for her performance, Curtis wins the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress
Hmm.
Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy, and a Saturn Award for Best Actress. James Cameron wins a Saturn Award for Best Director. It was also nominated at the Academy Awards and BAFTAs for Best Visual Effects category and 7 other Saturn Awards. So as of 2024, this is the only movie by directed by James Cameron. Let me make sure I get this correct. The only feature films that James Cameron directed to be nominated for an Academy Award in the Best Visual Effects and not win in that category. So before we start, let's talk about a couple little controversial things. So number one, this movie doesn't age totally well, right? We look back at it now. Their depictions of like Arab Americans or those from the Middle East, not the greatest. Uh, so much so that for years, Tom Arnold mainly was trying to get a sequel made, and they were going to do a sequel. And apparently, they had a script done up, and it was getting ready to go. And they had penciled in a date of 2002 or 2003 for a release date. And then, obviously, September 11th happens, and that changed a lot of things in the world. And it changed James Cameron around, where James Cameron decided, we can't really do that. Sequels in the works would have reunited the principal cast and director. Script was even ready. Released sometime 2002 or 3. Scrapped or at least indefinitely shelved due to script problems as well as the 9/11 terrorist attacks. James Cameron even said in an interview he dropped the sequel plans because, quote, in this day and age, terrorism just isn't funny anymore, end quote. Rightfully so. TV series was done based on the movies that came out in 2023. It only ran for one season. It didn't have great reception. The other controversial thing from this movie, uh, Eliza Dushku
Elijah Dushku. Yeah.
was 12 years old when she was making this movie, right? In January of 2018, Eliza Dushku plays Dana Tasker, Harry and Helen's daughter. Revealed when she was 12 years old, she was a 12-year-old actress making this movie. She was sexually molested by the film's 36-year-old stunt coordinator, a guy by the name of Joel Kramer. Dushku detailed how Kramer groomed her for several months to gain her friendship and her parents' trust, contrived to spend an evening alone with her, and then molested her. She says after an adult friend confronted him on the set about his abuse, she was injured during a stunt that she had to do. She alleges that this was, quote, no small coincidence. To be clear, over the course of those months, rehearsing and filming True Lies, it was Joel Kramer who was responsible for my safety on a film that at the time broke new ground for action films. On a daily basis, he rigged wires and harnesses my 12-year-old body. My life was literally in his hands. He hung me in the open air from a tower crane atop an office tower 25 plus stories high. Whereas he was supposed to be my protector, he was my abuser, end quote. After she released the statement, her co-stars of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jamie Lee Curtis, Tom Arnold, and director James Cameron tweeted their respect and admiration for her bravery. This is one of the reasons why she walked away from Hollywood. She did another TV show in the last couple of decades. Might have been Bull, I think. I can't remember. But
That's the one. Yep.
I guess the only way I can say this, because I don't know if it was ever proven, although I do believe victims, and they're saying she alleges that she was sexually harassed and assaulted on the set by, I didn't see who, by someone on the cast or crew. And that is why she's no longer, that's one of the reasons why she decided to walk away from the television movie industry. She's now working in Boston as a licensed therapist. She was a great actor. She's done a lot of things I was a fan of, and it is unfortunate that it's horrible that a 12-year-old girl was taken advantage of in any way, let alone a way like this. And then for something like that to happen where she does get hurt afterwards, quote unquote by coincidence. Oh, I'm sorry that happened. I don't know how that happened. That's garbage. Not good. Um. All right. So start the movie. True Lies. I gotta admit, this is how I like my movies to start, where you get basically a title and then you get to see the characters and actors, and then you start the movie. So you're not watching a bunch of stuff popping over everything, or like the last time when we watched Jingle All the Way, we had like a commercial that wasn't a commercial that was it that was
Turbo Man.
yeah, stuff like that. Switzerland. We see a nice place in the Swiss Alps, and it's beautiful, and it's like a castle, it's a mansion, it's a lake. And then we see what happens to be Arnold um, underwater, and he's doing some underwater welding to get through a grate in a fence. Then he comes up, takes off his wetsuit, and he's looking debonair because he's got a tuxedo on and things. I don't know much about scuba diving and wetsuits and how that stuff works. So I don't know how realistic it is that you could do that and come up, wear your tuxedo underneath, and it'd be bone dry. But hey, it looks good. Uh,
Yeah, that's not even something I thought of, but that's funny.
Look, I think of weird things. I overthink things, right? So that's on me. It might be. I don't know. I've never done scuba dive, so I don't know exactly how that works. Maybe. Especially considering like that's frozen water. I'm imagining it has to be insulated in some way, right? Um, so you don't freeze to death underwater. So it's possible, I guess. Uh, Arnold breaks into this place in his tuxedo, walks through the kitchen. Um, So what he does here is something I learned when I was in the military, right? If you walk with enough confidence and you act like you're supposed to be someplace and you know what you're doing, even if somebody stops you, a lot of times you can probably still just get away with coming in there and doing it. And then he does one because he's a very large man, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he starts bossing the chef around, right? But like I've done this before, especially when I was in the army, where you're not supposed to be there. But if you have the authority and you just kind of have the confidence, you can kind of just be like, yeah, okay, he's supposed to be here, and
Going
know what
around
you're
and
going to do.
saying, "Nice to see you, Colonel," and they're like,
But
"Yeah, it's
it's
been a while," and they're like, "Who is that guy?"
when you get caught is when you start looking nervous and you're looking around, and people can kind of pick up on the vibe. Like, is that guy supposed to be here? Does anybody know who that guy is? That's when people are. That's when someone comes up, questions you, and other people are like, "Hey, what's going on?" We're also introduced to his buddy. I forget his buddy's name because I didn't write it down.
Are you talking about Tom Arnold's character?
Yeah,
That's Albert
yeah.
Gibson.
That's where we get introduced to Gib Albert there in the truck. Um, and we kind of get their vibe of okay, Gib's the guy in the truck. He's got his other buddy in there who's out taking a pee. Um, and Arnold is the guy who does all the damage. This is where we also get our introduction to Juno Skinner, the lovely Tia Carrere. This is where I first had my lifelong crush on Tia Carrere. That still comes to this day. I didn't really see Wayne's World because I wasn't into Saturday Night Live as a kid. That's where a lot of people were first introduced to her. I did recognize later that she was on an episode of Married with Children. Um, but this is where I developed my lifelong crush of Tia. So what'd you think of the vibe in the very beginning of the movie so far?
Yeah, the opening, really strong opening, I'd say. I love movies that have like this type of espionage, especially like starting with this, kind of like the Bond films, which will have like always an opening action set piece. So kind of having that here, um, with like the slow build to it, where you're like, okay, what is he infiltrating for? What is this? But then like when he has to escape and like
All hell breaks loose.
that whole action set piece is really great. Like even when he's when he meets up with the van, and it's just like a normal day for him. He's like, "Would you mind like leaning back?" And then he like shoots through the window the two guys that are coming down the hill and stuff. Like, and there was a time where he's like going backwards and then ends up like falling and doing a roll. And as he comes up from the roll, he starts gunning down people following him. Like, it was really cool.
So one, yes, this was based off of like the opening of James Bond movies. Like they did um this was a deliberate thing. Two, I know younger people might know this, but I don't know if they truly understand that at one point Arnold Schwarzenegger was truly like the biggest movie star we had ever seen. Like, this is fresh off of Terminator 2. He did Last Action Hero, but right before this, which kind of bombed. But that was a highly anticipated movie until it didn't do well, right? Because like between Terminator, like Conan and Terminator, and then Terminator 2, like he was like if his name was attached to a movie, like people were going to see this. Like this was he was truly like the biggest movie star in the world. He was a larger than life individual and character. And then if you look at his story, where
And he had everything though too. I mean, like you mentioned a few of those, but also like he did comedy with like Twins, right? Kindergarten Cop. He had Total Recall, which was a big movie, right? Like,
yeah,
um, yeah. I haven't seen Last Action Hero, but so I'm not too sure about that.
and then but he also has like the Great American Story, where he came from Austria
Hmm.
and was being a bodybuilder and then got into Hollywood and kind of like worked his way up and did all these things, right? So like he's a classic American story. He came to America to make it, and he did. Like you said, he goes in there because he's got to get some files. They managed to get him. Um, like I said, we get Tia Carrere. We also get the dance, the tango. So uh, his his biggest challenge for this movie was not doing anything physical, but it was dancing the tango. He had to take dancing lessons to realistically perform it. He rehearsed the scene for about 6 months because he wanted to make sure he did as good at the tango as Al Pacino did in Son of a Woman, which used the same song, Por una cabeza, I guess, or cabeza. I'm not sure. Um, Also, between that dress and the tango, that further cemented my crush on Tia Carrere. But like you said, then we get our normal Arnie stuff, right? The action, his little quip. Hey, can I see your invitation? This is my invitation. Explosions, gunfire. Um, this is like something that would come out of a Bond movie, and either might have been done from a Bond movie or loosely based on it with the skiing and the snowmobiles. Um, we get he's chased by a couple Dobermans. They jump up to bite him. He doesn't kill him. He just kind of like knocks their noggins together. They yelp and then they run off scared, like, "Nah, I'm not messing with this guy again." And then they escape and they go back. So glad you enjoyed the opening there, right? Cut back to Washington D.C., nation's capital. Once again, great city. Love that place. Awesome to go visit. Plenty of stuff to do. He's being dropped off. So he's giving him all his cover stuff. So he's giving him his ID, his passport back, right? Because although his name is Harry Tasker, he's going by the name of Harold or Harry Rehnquist, is an alias he uses, right? So he's got to turn all that stuff back over. He gets his ID, his wallet, his keys back, some flights, some hotel receipts, all this stuff. So,
Gift for the kid.
yeah. So basically,
Wedding
his
ring.
wife, his wife does not know he's a spy. His wife thinks he's just a computer salesman. So he had to go to a conference. But in order to keep this ruse up, he's got to have all these other things because you never know what she's going to come across at some point. And yeah, he forgets his wedding ring. But Buddy's there for him, so he gets his wedding. Uh, he gets in late. Um, his wife is kind of used to this because this is the life that they have. Wakes up the next morning. They're talking about stuff. He's getting ready. He's droning on about the conference and some other stuff that is pretty boring to her because she just doesn't care about that stuff.
Hey, it actually sounded pretty cool though. It was like this computer program that does stuff that we now have happen all the time, where it like shows them their last order or like what they've
Yeah, their
done or
credit
whatever.
limit and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Which,
yeah.
yeah, I guess for like 1994, this might be a big deal, right? Because I think they were using like Windows 3.1 in this or something. He, like I said, he gets a snow globe. His daughter Dana is, waits till he leaves and like, this is lame, and throws the snow globe in the trash. Um, this is a very fluent neighborhood, as you can tell. One, because it's very nice. Two, they leave their doors unlocked, and his buddy can just walk in the next morning because the door is unlocked, and he can just start walking in and making his own coffee and various other things, right? Um, I don't know if that's really being able to be done nowadays, but maybe in some neighborhoods, but you never know. He has a pack of smokes that he's got a camera in, and he shows it to Harry, and they see that his daughter is stealing money from his buddy. He tries to chase after, but can't. Then we see that they work for something called the uh, Omega. I don't know, Omega Corporation. I don't think it was corporation. But it's some top secret government organization or whatever. Some top secret government organization. They do all the stuff no one else knows about, blah, blah, blah. So they go in through this office building, right? And then they have a secret entrance. Um, you know, there's x-ray scanners, and the lady at the desk has her hand on a gun until she can properly identify him. So this is like CIA or above top secret level type stuff. This is where we also get Trilby. This is where we also get Charlton Heston for the first time. And I gotta admit, yeah, he seemed a little more intimidating than Arnold Schwarzenegger there. Like he seems like he doesn't take no crap from anybody. And he even tells the other guy there, the third guy that was in the van, where he's like, "Are you on Harry's team? Yeah. What makes you think any grace that I give him, I'm going to give to you?" So they go through some of the computer files they were checking on, right? Uh, so they think there's something going down, but they have no proof, right? No proof, no nothing. So they got to find a way to get some. So all of a sudden they find out uh, Juno Skinner, the young lady that he met in Rome, is in Washington D.C. all of a sudden. Interesting. So they set up to go meet Miss Skinner. She deals in antiquities and stuff coming out of the Middle East and Persia, as she says, stuff that's buried under the sands of Iran, Iraq, and Syria. She has diplomatic connections, so she's able to smuggle some of these things in and out. What we also don't know is she's using that to smuggle weapons and various other things in and out. So this was filmed and done before the September 11th attacks. This was filmed in 1994. So part of that, James Cameron realized while they were filming this and doing the research how easy it was would have been to smuggle weapons in and out of the country pre 9/11 days. But he also didn't want to show it because he didn't want to give people ideas. So they kind of did some workaround stuff like that. But the fact is, while doing this, he realized, like, man, people can just kind of get stuff in and out. because for people who didn't know back then, before September 11th, if you were on a flight, people picking you up could literally walk up to gate A17 and pick you right up from there. Um, there really wasn't a lot of airport security. Like you might go through metal detector, have a quick pat down, but that was about it.
Right. And that kind of same thing with like I feel like TV shows and movies did this a lot, right? Where it's like pre 9/11, like running to the airport to catch them and say I love you before they get on the plane. They could go like
Yeah,
all the way up to the
literally
gate,
all the
you
way.
know.
Like that, you could walk somebody to the gate and see them off and see
I
them get
remember
on
those days.
the
I
runway.
used to be able to do that. Yeah.
Or you could be there when they landed, and when they pulled up to the gate, instead of waiting down by baggage claim to meet someone, they could meet you right there as you walked out the little runway, and you could meet your loved one there. So times were a bit different. Um, so did you feel any tension between these two here? Did you see a connection between Miss Skinner and Harry?
Yeah, I mean, like Gibbs says, right? Like after 2 minutes, she's ready to bear his children.
Dude, I'm telling you
um,
right now, that look that she first gave him the first time they caught eyes, like, yeah, I would have melted right then and there. I would have been
it's
done.
Prime Arnold. How could you not, right?
No, I'm talking if I'm Arnold and the look that she
I know,
get.
no, but I'm saying for her, like giving
Yeah.
him the look. But yeah.
Um. Did you? Uh. So after that is where we meet Aziz, or that's our first glimpse of Aziz.
Not
Where
in.
he
Sorry.
is, where he is just he's appearing to be just one of the workers, right? We later find out he's actually running the whole operation, where he's not very happy with Miss Skinner because he's able to recognize Harry as a spy. Um, and tells her, your phones are most likely tapped and there's surveillance on here. He puts his hands on her. I wanted to take him down after that, like that. One, you don't put your hands on him. It's not cool. Um, but yeah, so that definitely wasn't something I was very happy with right there. But what did you think of your first few viewings of Aziz there?
Um, I didn't think much of him. I guess I was trying to figure out who is like the ringleader at this time. Um, like I didn't know if he was like more of a not the head guy in charge, but maybe like the head henchman.
Yeah,
But then it becomes more clear that he's kind of the guy in charge. But for a while, I was wondering, who I was trying to figure out the hierarchy of all the villains here.
yeah, I can get that. Like the first time watching it, you're not really sure, so you're not sure if he's going to be reporting back up to somebody else about what he saw there or something like that. Yeah, I can get that. Oh, it's also Harry's birthday, right? And they're making him a cake, and they've got balloons and presents, and he's supposed to be there. But because just like all these other movies like this, he's obviously not going to make it. Like as soon as he says, they patch a call through from Helen, and as soon as he's like, "I promised," you're like, "Yeah, you're not making it, buddy." Like movie 101 right there. As soon as you promise you're going to be there, that person's not going to be there.
Casey, you couldn't have picked a better movie for a Schwarzenegger movie right after Jingle All the Way than this one because very similar parallels here where the mom is like, "You never make it home," and
Yeah,
he's like trying to make it home for his kid and his wife, and it's
yeah.
just like it's a holiday like his birthday instead of Christmas, but like yeah, very similar.
Not only that, but like, okay, so they're driving home, right? And Gibbs notices like, "Hey, we're being tailed," and that's when Harry's like, terrorists just had like, there's no manners, like, like I got some place to be, and these guys, so calls up the other buddy. Uh, so he's gonna lose him. He's gonna try and lose him in the mall, right? Goes through the mall. Got a couple henchmen following him, right? Meanwhile, Aziz is still back in the van, and he's trailing on Gibbs. He's waiting there. Eventually, Gibbs loses him because a bus pulls up in front of him, and he's gone. But so you get two henchmen henching, right? They're following Arnie through the mall. Arnie goes in the bathroom because you gotta take a leak. You gotta do these things, right? And they follow him into the mall. One guy goes in, keep an eye on him. The other guy is gonna come in and then take him out. Now we have a fight and a shootout in the mall. Uh, feel bad for this poor guy who's this. Okay, let me ask you this first. Are you do you have objections to using the restroom in public places or no? Some people can't do it.
I used to like when I was in like high school, I would try to just wait till I was home. If any, cause especially like high school bathrooms are, especially ours were like in the middle of construction, and we were like they were building a new section of our high school. I If I could, I would use the new bathrooms. They were brand new. Like the year I was in high school, like the first year I was in high school or second year I was in high school, they just opened up this whole new wing, and I would try to use those bathrooms. But if I had to use the ones by like the cafeteria, those were very like poorly
Maintained.
maintained, or just probably because it had a high traffic of people, it was just hard to maintain.
High
I
traffic
would
of
think.
teenage boys who don't
Yes.
really care about taking care of
Yes.
a
So I would like pee in those bathrooms, but if I had to, go number 2, I'd try to use the new bathrooms. That was my plan. But like I'll say this, the bathrooms at my work right now are like the stalls go almost to the floor. Like so like the stalls on the side go all the way to the floor. And it's like this nice bathroom. And then like you have like this nice door that like goes almost all the way to the floor. Like it's very nice bathrooms. But like, sometimes nowadays, like more of like nature calls, I kind of have to deal with it, right? But like back in the day, I would be a little bit more apprehensive about using public bathrooms.
so I never really had an issue. If I had to go, I was gonna go. It is what it is. Um, but I also say also now that's a product of being older because that the gentleman who gets caught in the crossfire and all this, he does manage to live, right? But he's an older gentleman who's
Yeah,
reading the newspaper, trying to take care of his business in the stall. Um, but yeah, especially at this point now, if I gotta go, I gotta go. Like I don't. There's look, you guys may not like to hear this, but as you get older, like there's no guarantee you might be able to hold it or you might be able to make it to where you got to go at some point, right? Not saying I've had any accidents. I've had some close calls where it's like, oh man, I really should have went earlier. But yeah, at some point, like when you get older, like when nature calls, you got to do what you got to do. As long as it's not a disgusting place, like, hey, I'll just suck it up, deal with it. So there's a shootout in the bathroom. Arnie gets in his fight. Stall, urinals get broken. He pulls a hand dryer out the wall, beats a large guy up. Then we have Aziz comes in, starts a shootout. Like I said, then he ends up getting chased through the mall. Then he gets chased through downtown Washington D.C. And stuff like this was where I got my love of spies, and I was like, I'm gonna meet a spy in Washington D.C. My trip there, I was determined like either I was gonna meet one or we were gonna see some sort of weird chase downtown of some secret organization because stuff like that always happens in the middle of like Washington D.C. And of course, when this happens, there's never any traffic. Like little do they know, like the traffic in DC 24 hours a day is horrendous. Um, I don't know if it's
yeah,
still this
that's the
way.
downside of. That's like anytime, like I went to University of Maryland football game last week, which is on the outskirts of that. But anytime you get like close to that DC area, like go 295, that traffic sucks. I once went to a FedEx Field for a soccer game, Chelsea versus Barcelona, 2015, right? Or something like that. And my friend, my wife, and I left. It's like a 7 o'clock game. We left at like 2 o'clock from our house. We live an hour and a half away. And we got there at halftime because FedEx Field has one way in
Oof.
and all the traffic is going there. One way in and one way out. Uh, So by the time we parked, it's like game time. By the time you walk in and get all the way up to our seats, it was like the 40th minute, and it was a bummer. But then we had to sit in traffic trying to get out, because it's a one way out. But it was also just a build up to all of that traffic, not just for the game, but like 295. It was a work day, so people are, it was a work day in the middle of summer. We were college kids at the time, but like, you know, um, people leaving work as we're heading down. It created this traffic jam, like just people going in and out of DC very heavily traffic.
Okay, so real quick, three things. Number one, is FedEx the same stadium as RFK, or is it a newer stadium?
No, it's a newer stadium. It's in
Okay,
Landover, Maryland, like right outside
okay,
of DC. But RFK, I've been to a few times as well. That one,
okay.
I don't know. I feel like it's almost easier to get to RFK. There's multiple entrances and
I
exits.
so two things about traffic in DC, and I don't know if it's still the same. One, I remember I went to go visit a friend up there. This was late '90s, early 2000s, something like that. I remember going into it, like traffic is just weird in certain places because you have essentially you have 6 lanes. You have like 2 lanes going one way, 2 lanes coming the other way, and then on each side of those 2 lanes you have like your parking lane, right? Which equates to 6 lanes. I don't know if it's still the same, but at this time, going into DC for certain hours, there was no parking in that lane, and it turned into 4 lanes going into DC, 2 lanes coming out, right? Obviously, because more people are going into the city for it. Then 9, 10 o'clock or whatever, it changed to normal, where you have your parking lane on each side and then 2 lanes of traffic going each way. Then around 3 or 4 o'clock or something, it changed to just the opposite, where now that once again there was no parking on the outside lanes, and it turned into 4 lanes going out of DC, 2 lanes going into the city. And not knowing that, like trying to drive in that, I can imagine it, like trying to drive in that without knowing those rules or being like seeing those signs, like I can imagine was just hard. Two, I remember I took my ex-wife. We were driving up. We just got married and we were going home to meet my family. We were driving up from Fort Stewart, Georgia to Massachusetts, where I live. So you take 95 all the way up north, right? So we're going through Washington, D.C. I was in a left-hand lane, okay? This was 99, I think. I was in a left-hand lane. I don't remember exiting the freeway or the highway. I was in a left-hand lane. Somehow, next thing I know, I was no longer on the highway. I was in the middle of Washington, D.C., and we were driving by the goddamn White House.
Yeah, it goes like right through.
Like I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. Like somehow the highway just ended. It turned into a regular city street, and next thing I know, I'm literally saying to my wife, "Holy crap, that's the White House," and we're driving right by it. And once again, this was '99, so we had there's no GPS, so like we had to figure out how to get back on the highway. It was a nightmare. Okay, anyway, back to reality. Um, Aziz steals a bike. Arnie steals a horse.
Yeah.
He did his own stunt riding for this. He did a lot of his own stunt riding because he learned how to ride a horse for Conan.
I'll say not a lot though. There was so many scenes that just like T2, I'm like, that's a different guy.
He did some of his own stunt
Yeah,
riding.
he did some of it.
Um, chase through DC, chase through a hotel in DC, chase through this and that. Next thing you know, they go through like a kitchen, which I imagine that kitchen would probably have to be shut down after
After the
dude in a
horse goes through.
motorcycle
Especially
drives through. Then the horse runs through.
horses poop all the time while they're running too. Like there's probably some left in that
Between
kitchen.
running and walking. So I think I told you this before. We had a horse cavalry regiment when I was stationed out here in Fort Irwin, and we were a cavalry unit, so we had a horse detachment. So I remember doing this change of command ceremony. When
Hmm.
they do a change of command ceremony in the army, they get you into formation, right? And Everybody standing there. If you're taller than the man in front of you, step forward. All tall people go up front. Turn right. If you're taller than the man in front of you, step forward. Turn back left. Taller man in front of you, step forward. So basically, you want all your tall, strong-looking people up front, and then all those people like me who are 5'6", short guys in the back, right? So the horse detachment is up here in front of us. The ceremonial parties are doing their thing, and there's like 4 little formations of us, right? I'm sorry, no, the horse detachment wasn't up front. The horse detachment was in the middle. So there's two formations of us. The horse detachment, 2 other formations of us, and they're horses. And I'm all the way in the back. And next thing I know, horse just had to go. That horse peed for what seemed like 2 minutes straight. Like it just didn't stop. And it was like a bucket being poured for like 2 minutes straight. And I'm struggling not to laugh. I'm giggling and I'm shaking. And there's other people next to me who are snickering and shaking. But it's the ceremony, so we're trying not like we can't disrupt the ceremony. And then we would do like these big unit runs, and the horse detachment would lead us, and then our unit leadership, and then these formations of people. And there's like a couple thousand of us. So, and we were in the middle towards the back. My unit was, but at some point you would always just be able to like as you're looking forward, and you're running, and all of a sudden, like as you're running, you would see groups of people run, and everybody's running in a straight line in formation, and then you would see it like part like the Red Sea. And then as you got up closer, you realized because you would start to smell it, and then you would have to part like the Red Sea. Because, like you said, the horses just had to do their thing. So, yeah, I
I'll
imagine
say
that.
this rate like this chase scene really cool. I just love the idea of him grabbing the horse and being like, "All right, this is what I'm gonna have to do," and then going through the building up the elevator.
What's even better than that is when he calls Gibbs and he's like, I
Yes,
want you
yes.
here and I want him here. I need you
My
guys to
horse is
hurry
getting
because my horse
tired.
is getting tired. Wait a minute, you want a horse? And then, like you said, so the guy that like Aziz gets an elevator and he takes a hostage and they're going up in the hotel. Harry gets on a horse, and he goes to the hotel, gets in another elevator, and it stops this older couple from getting out of the elevator. But he's very polite. He's like, "Hey, can you hit the button for the top floor, please? Thank you."
Yes.
She gets mad. Can say something? Okay, what do you want me to say? One, it's a police horse. It's a legitimate police horse, right? So it's got the
Right,
whole
right.
thing that says like police horse on it. And it's a very large individual who has a gun in his hand, right? So my assumption would be he's probably a cop as well. Like he would look like he would be a
Right,
detective.
right.
So what do you want me to say at this point? Like, I can't say anything to this dude.
Yeah, if say something and be like, which floor are you trying to get to?
Or
But
like
he
like
already
you
said the
said,
top floor before that, but I'd be like, "Yes, sir,"
or
is
like you
what I'll
said,
say to you.
nice looking animal because those horses
Yeah.
are pretty well taken care
Yeah.
of. So they get to the top, which ends up being on the roof. Which okay, sure, maybe they were adding floors or just doing construction. That's why it was like that. Okay, cool, whatever. Uh, Aziz does a couple spins, takes the bike off the roof, lands in the pool next door before he makes his escape. Uh,
What
Arnie,
was what was Harry thinking here?
that the horse was going to make the jump and they were going to land in the pool. And
There's no
unfortunately, at the
way
last
he
second, the
makes
horse
that
is
jump.
like, nah, I'm not doing
He did
this.
exactly what I would do, which is nope.
So, speaking of that, uh, he had a near fatal accident on set during the horse riding scene. His horse got startled, got out of control. He managed to slide off the horse, but did this near a 30-foot drop off. His personal stunt man saw what happened and was able to grab him before he went over the ledge. Um,
Could you imagine
Losing Arnold Schwarzenegger to a horse accident.
that age too? Like the
Look, in all
prime
fairness,
Arnold.
look, we almost lost Harrison Ford because of a plane crash.
Yeah.
And then I love him talking to the horse. What kind of police horse are you? Look at me when I'm talking to you. Arnold doesn't get enough credit for some of his comedic performances. Like
Yes. Yeah.
Like he's a funny individual at times. He did a thing on the Tonight Show a few years back when Fallon first took over, and uh, they did a skit of a vegetable chopper, right? So like they did like a Home Shopping Network skit, and doing all this other stuff, and then he had a simple little vegetable chopper, like the little glass jar. You screw the thing on, has a blade, and you just push down, and it's a chopper.
Mm-hmm.
So Fallon's trying to move on to other stuff, and he's like, no, 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 can we go back to the chopper? And eventually it goes back to him yelling, get to the chopper! And he like flips the table over. Uh, it's hilarious.
Uh,
It's good that he can make
there's
fun
those
of it, but
commercials too, right? The State Farm commercials with the neighbor when he's trying to say neighbor, and they're like, "No, it's neighbor," and he's like, "That's what I've been saying, neighbor."
I
But
don't think
like,
I've ever
it's in
seen
his
those.
Austrian. Oh, you have to look him up. Look up Arnold Schwarzenegger State Farm commercials. It's I think it was a Super Bowl commercial last year. But yeah,
I'll check
check
that
it
out.
out.
I'll send you the Fallon one. You send me the other ones.
Yes, I'll send it. Yeah.
So he's mad, but okay. He goes home. Helen's obviously disappointed, right? Not cool. Missed the birthday party, which didn't look like there was much of a party. I know, obviously, we didn't see if there was any other people invited. Maybe there were, but still missed the party because he was busy working. She doesn't know he's saving the world, right? But
Mm-hmm. She makes that joke to her friend at work too,
yeah,
right?
it's
Like
not
he
like
acts
he's
like he's
saving the
saving the
world.
world, or he's
Yeah.
not. It's not like he's saving the world. It's like yes, he is. Yes, he is.
So okay, the next day, uh, they realize there's some other stuff going on. He recognizes the guy. He's going through his eyes. He recognized the guy, so they got a profile on the guy, and they realize like, yeah, they're definitely onto some bad stuff because this is a heavyweight terrorist that they're after. So they're also able to track down that there's some missing nuclear weapons around the world, and so they think he might have one, and he might be trying to set it off on American soil. Side note: do you know how many missing nuclear weapons the United States has?
No, I don't.
There are six. There are currently six missing.
Really?
Yes, including one that's off of Tybee Island in southeast Georgia, which they can't get to.
Wow.
And there's rumors that maybe the Russians might have scooped it up. There is also a rumor from a Russian general that there may be around 100 or so briefcase-sized nuclear weapons that are unaccounted for worldwide. So, retired Russian general that says this.
Nice.
Other Russian intelligence services and agencies are saying it's not true. But in all fairness, that's kind of what I would expect Russian services to say. So I don't know who really to believe in that.
Yeah.
So he decides he's going to go surprise his wife, Helen. We're only 35 minutes into the movie at this point. Like, I'm going to speed through a lot more of this.
Yeah.
But at this point, the movie's only like 35 minutes so far. And we've had all kind of action sequences, so we're going good. Gets there, and he happens to walk. He does the typical movie thing of he walks up and hears a conversation he shouldn't hear, where Helen has a mystery man that calls her, right? And
Yeah. Simon.
Simon. Helen has to scurry off to go meet him for lunch, right? He's heartbroken and disappointed. But Tom Arnold, welcome to the club. So
Yeah.
there's an anecdote. When Harry tells Gib Helen's having an affair, Gib tells a story about his second wife taking everything when she left it, even ice cube trays from the freezer. This is a direct reference to Tom Arnold's divorce from Roseanne Barr that happened at the same time. It was reported that she took his ice cube trays when she left him as well. Arnold tells the story to James Cameron on the set while saying, quote, "What kind of sick bitch takes the ice cube trays out the freezer?" Cameron thought the line was hilarious and incorporated it into the film.
Yes, it is. It was a very funny line.
It rings true in more ways than one because the same thing happened to me. During my first divorce, I came back from Iraq, and my ex-wife had taken the microwave She took one lamp instead of the set of lamps I had. Two, she took one lamp. And one day, when I went to go get get some ice to put in my soda, that's when I realized I didn't have ice cube trays anymore. And I didn't say the exact same quote, but I think I thought along the same lines of like, who in the blue hell takes the goddamn ice cube trays? So yeah, it happens. Arnie's not happy. As we see that night at dinner, Arnie's definitely not happy. So then he decides to bug Helen. Puts a bug in her purse and taps her phone and things, right? So this is where we meet Simon. Simon stumbles into Helen in like a Chinese restaurant, right? Mm-hmm. And Simon has played by Bill Paxton in a fantastic role. He has this grift going that he is a spy, and he kind of ropes these women into his little web, and then takes advantage of them, right? So throughout all this, he makes up a bunch of stories. He takes credit for what Gibbs and Harry did in the mall, right? Which is not cool. So at some point, Harry decides, hey, we're going to have to take care of this. So Helen's going to meet him one night. So they follow her, right? She gets there. She meets Simon. Simon has, which I can't imagine are real plane tickets, right? Or they're probably refundable plane tickets that he just keeps recycling over and over. That says he's going to Paris and says he needs to go to Paris and he needs someone to act like they are his wife so that he can pass off and won't be picked up as a spy. Because somehow spies can tell other spies from like a mile away. Like, maybe it's part of the training. Maybe it's just clues they give off. Maybe it's a vibe. I don't know, right? Maybe it's like gaydar, where like some gay people can kind of tell other people, and they say their gaydar is working or it is. I don't know, but I don't know how these spies can kind of tell each other apart from like miles away, just by a glimpse or a glance or something. It just doesn't make sense, but it works for me. So he's putting the moves on Helen. She's convinced she's going to go do it. Because look, let's be real. She needs the excitement, right? Like Gibbs tells Harry, he's like, what do you expect? You're never there, right?
Right.
She's a housewife. You're never there, not just for the romantic times or for the big times, but you're never there for the small things for your wife when you have a job like that. And it's the small things that are going to build up and then eventually crashing with the big things. And that's how marriages crumble. So trust me on this, I know. So he's putting the moves on her. She decides she doesn't want to do it, but that's when the Omega team breaks in, right? They cut the side off his trailer. Oh, before this, sorry, we find out he's a used car salesman.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on old Simon and his grift here that he's got going?
What a scumbag. But I'll say Bill Paxton plays this character so well. I loved him in this role.
The little skeezy mustache.
At first, I didn't recognize him because of that, and he was a little younger than I'm used to seeing him, I guess. So it was, I was like, why does he look so familiar? Then I'm like, oh yeah, this is Bill Paxton's character. But yeah, so that was funny. But I just also love that scene when Arnold drives back in the
convertible
in the car, yeah, and he like is whipping it into that spot.
Meanwhile, he talked trash basically about his wife the entire time, right? Talking about how easy this girl is and how hot he's getting her all the time, and he's making Arnold
Compliments her too. Compliments her.
He's just making her more and more furious. He's making Arnie more and more furious by the second. So they cut off like the side of his trailer. They take him in, right? So they do some interrogation on Helen to ask like what she knows. They call him Carlos the Jackal or whatever, right? And they give him like this story that Carlos is like this big known terrorist and things. And Helen breaks down. Like she apparently has never cheated on Harry. She just wanted some excitement. She wanted some attention, right?
Yeah.
She wasn't getting it at home. She never cheated on Harry. She loved Harry. She always will love Harry, but she was just missing something. You know, she had a very humdrum life at that point. So they come up with a plan where they're gonna give her some excitement, right? Okay, cool. So they give her a code name, Boris and Doris. Um, Obviously, when they first gave her the code name of Boris, she yells out Natasha, which is from one of my favorite things of all time, Rocky and Bullwinkle, Moose and Squirrel.
Hmm.
But no, he gives her Boris and Doris. Um, she's gonna get a call, and then she'll get further instructions from there. Meanwhile, they take Simon to the side of the road. Basically, they threaten they're going to shoot him, and he gives up his whole game that he's basically just a used car salesman. He's just doing it so he can sleep with women and all this other stuff. And he pees himself, and it's just really embarrassing. But
Hmm.
Bill Paxton plays this role so great. He's so awesome in this spot. So they let him go. They're basically like, yeah, you have no use to us. He thinks he's gonna get shot. They scare him off. He scurries about on his business. A day or two later, whatever it is, uh, she gets a phone call. It was for Doris. She's supposed to go to this hotel. She's supposed to dress sexy. She's supposed to pick up a package or an envelope at the front desk, go up to a certain room, or she'll get instructions from there. Basically, she's got to go up to the room, plant a bug bedside, and then leave, right? She doesn't know is that this is her husband. And she's going to meet up with her husband up there, kind of like in a role playing scenario, right? But she's kind of frumpy. Like, look, okay, one, Jamie Lee Curtis is a very beautiful one. Like, let's not get it twisted. Especially 90s Jamie Lee Curtis at this time. She had already done Trading Places. She had already done Halloween. So, you know, she had went through that Scream Queen phase, and then she did a little nudity in Trading Places, but she was a very attractive woman still in the early 90s before she was doing Activa commercials, things of that nature. Um, since she looks at herself in the mirror, she rips off like part of her dress and makes it a little more sexified. She takes some water from some roses, slicks her hair back. Her dress is a little more form fitting now, looks a little better. Um, so she goes in the room. Um, there's Arnie in the chair. Got some shadows covering his face. He's got a French dude from work giving instructions. He's playing on a tape recorder, right? Now, there's a rumor, so he's giving her instructions, telling her what to do, blah, blah, blah. And he tells her to dance for you, tells her to dance sexy, right? So, a couple notes on this. The bra and matching panties worn by Helen during the strip teases were Jamie Lee Curtis's own. She rehearsed the scene extensively with James Cameron. It was there and then that when she falls during this little strip tease, that it was conceived. There was a rumor that it happened spontaneously during the rehearsal or during the shooting, but it's not the case. But Arnold Schwarzenegger was not told about this before they filmed the actual scene. So Arnold getting up and like sitting up for a second and then realizing, oh, like we're still filming,
That's
and
interesting.
then sits back down is real. But apparently the rumor that like she legitimately like slipped off the sides of the bed and did that are not true.
Hmm.
Um, so gets her a little worked up, and then he starts making out with her. But she's still not up for cheating on her husband because she doesn't know it's her husband. She cracks him with the phone, uh, plants the bug. But next thing you know, The terrorists from the Crimson Jihad break in, right? Bam. Um, each of them think they are there for both Helen and Harry think that the terrorists are breaking in for them. Helen thinks
Yes.
because she's working with this government organization she doesn't know about that, and she got caught up with Carlos's people. Harry because he's an actual spy and knows what's going on, right? So they get kidnapped, they get taken away, they're on a plane. This is where the story all starts to break down. This is where he keeps trying to tell Juno she's crazy. She's a hooker I picked up from the bar. She doesn't know what she's talking about. But she has a locket with a family picture in it that kind of gives the info away, right? So they get knocked out. They get taken to someplace off the Florida Keys. Wake up there. And these are two of my favorite scenes. They wake up there. They get there with Aziz, and they're looking at a nuclear bomb, right? And he's like, "Do you know what this is? This is just Arnold. It's an espresso machine.
Yeah.
No, it's a snow cone maker." Threatens his wife, and then he spills the beans like down to details of like how much payload it's carrying, what it's capable of doing. And this is when Helen realizes, like, oh crap, like this is true. This is a great line. This was the clip I thought about sending you before, for the clip for the preview of saying all that, and then what can I say? I'm a spy. Gets punched out. Great scene.
And which one did you send me? I saw it, but I didn't watch it because I hadn't seen the movie yet.
The scene I sent you was the next one where they're eventually they find the bug in Helen's purse, right? So there's people from Omega on the way to go catch up with it, right? But then they get taken to a torturer where he injects Harry with truth serum. And this is the one I sent you where
okay.
She's like, so what's gonna happen to us? And he's like, he's gonna kill us. Or the bomb's gonna explode. Or whatever. And she's like, is it working? And she's like, yeah, I guess it is working.
Well, there you go. That's what you heard right when we talked about what we're watching
And
this week
then
and what we
she asks
heard
him,
last week.
have you ever killed anyone? Yeah, but they were all bad.
Yeah.
Another great scene is next.
Would that make you feel better about it? You're dating
Probably.
somebody that says that?
Probably. I mean, I can't feel much worse at this point, right? Like,
That's true.
I'm probably gonna die. Either I'm gonna get tortured to death, or I'm gonna be there when a nuclear bomb goes off. So I'm living on borrowed time. Um, so after that, they go. The torturer comes in, and Arnold's on truth serum. He's like, "Do you have any last things to say?" And he basically tells him exactly what's gonna happen. Oh,
Yes,
how
I
do you
love
plan?
this. I love this whenever this type of thing happens in movies. I'm trying to think of another one that does it, but I've definitely seen this trope before, right? Of first I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that, then I'm going to do this, and then they do those things, and the
Yeah,
people still can't
he's,
stop them.
he's like, how do you expect on doing that? Well, my handcuffs? Yeah, I picked them, and then pretty much he does all
Yeah.
that. So now they got to escape off the island, right? So they run into bad guys, they kill more Middle Eastern bad guys. Uh, I think one of the coolest scenes I've ever seen is Arnold stepping on the pallet board, kicking up the AK-47 to himself, and then shooting the dude from behind the corner. Like, I even watching that again today, I don't know why that just tickled me. Like, that was awesome.
A lot of cool things done in this. In this.
The taking the gasoline nozzle and shooting bullets and a hail of fire at bad guys, right? I love the line from Helen of "I marry Rambo."
Yes.
Obviously, that was very tongue in cheek and on purpose. Um, so good to see that Rambo exists in their world.
Yeah, could you imagine if they had done like I married the Terminator? Like a
Or
little too on the
or,
nose
or,
there.
or they could have done "I marry Commando" because he played a role called Commando. He played in a movie called Commando.
Yeah. Or Conan. Yeah. You could say Conan, but he doesn't really carry a
There's
gun,
there
so
wasn't
that
any
wouldn't make any
shooting or anything
sense.
in that. Yeah, Terminator probably would have been another one. That might have
I
went through
married
like a
Turbo Man.
that might have went through a script rewrite where they're like, nah, that's a little too much right there. Another great scene once again. So okay, he's got a handgun and a Uzi.
Yes.
Now, if you got to give one to your wife, which one are you giving?
The handgun. Why does he give her the
I
Uzi?
don't know. I didn't think about that till I just saw it this time. Like, what the hell? But great scene of he's caught, he gets captured,
Hmm.
he needs her to help, and she goes out there and she's ready to let loose, but she trips and it slips out her hands, and then it tumbles down the stairs and just starts going off, and she manages to kill everybody in the room as she hides
Yeah.
behind.
Somehow does not end up killing themselves, right?
Yeah,
Because this
or
is
her
a
husband.
very dangerous uh when it's going down the steps. I will say this part went on a little long in the sense of how many times it cuts back to it falling down the
Oh,
stairs.
it as it does circles, letting just random
Yeah.
bullets out as it's going along. Yeah, they could have cut that down by a couple seconds. We got the gist after the first one or two, but it was still fun. Eventually, she gets captured. Um, she gets taken hostage by Juno, and they take off from the
Well, she
Florida
thinks
Keys.
he's dead too,
Yeah,
because he went into like
he,
the one
he
guy uses a rocket launcher, and
there's an explosion.
she
He
thinks
jumps underwater. He's
yeah.
swimming underwater. Great scene. He's underwater while there's fire and flames above him, and he's underwater. Yeah, so she thinks she lost her husband, right? But this is when the rest of Omega shows up. They capture him and they start tracking down the limousine, as well as Gibbs starts calling back, and they realize like they got to get people out of the area, so that they're on a limited amount of time because oh yeah, Aziz actually while he's recording, the first time he's trying to do a recording, camera
Yeah.
battery dies. Not cool.
You know that
Uh,
guy's sweating too. He's like, I do not want to be the one that has to tell him this thing is like dying and interrupt his speech here.
Dude, he was on a roll in his speech, man. He had a thing going, right?
Yeah, be like, actually, we need you to stop so we can
It's not
put
like
a new
it's
battery.
Spielberg or Scorsese back there that can just yell cut, like let's do another take, right?
Right, right. No, he knows this. This guy knows he's replaceable or something. You know.
Very yeah. He's not even a henchman, right? Like he's just the dude recording like scenes. So he's trying to work his way up to henchman. So he's I guess he'd be like one of the red shirts or whatever in Star Trek or something like that, where like the no name guys, where that they're gonna get killed. He knows he's that guy, so like if he interrupts him, he's probably not gonna live long, right? He's still on
Mm-hmm.
probation. He's trying to make it past probation. Um, so he films another one and shows the world the nuclear bomb, and he turns the key, puts it in crazy in concrete, right? And okay, they've only got a certain amount of time because the bomb's gonna go off. So Omega does manage to get everybody to a safe way. They have some Marines, some Harriers that manage to track down this limousine. They shoot they destroy a van that has some henchmen and some other stuff in it. They blow up part of a bridge while this limousine is still going. Helen and Juno have a cat fight in the limousine. Um, the, first thing I thought of when I saw this was Kramer. Cat fight. Like I don't know why that like cat fight. Like every time I see like a cat fight, that just literally like pops in my head. Yeah, cat fight. Um, unfortunately, we lose the lovely Juno Skinner. Rest in peace, Juno.
Yeah, she's gone.
But Harry does manage to save Helen, right? They manage to make it to the safe zone, whatever mileage away it is. And they're there and they have a romantic kiss while the nuclear bomb goes off. So you get a kiss and this bright flash, and it's kind of romantic at the same time. Like there's death and destruction going on like 15
Yeah,
miles.
my wife laughed at this. It was she just come downstairs. This is like the first thing she sees, and she just laughed. I'm like, yeah, the nuke going off by them. Oh, like, that's where they just were. So they're excited that they have escaped.
So do you think this would rekindle your marriage if you were going through some issues and maybe some possible infidelity, and now you
Hell
find out
yeah,
like your spouse is like there's the reason
yeah,
why your spouse is now late all the time is because he's literally saving the world.
yeah. I mean, how could it not? And I mean, I think I could also understand why he can't say anything. Like, there's cover stuff that would put me in danger. There's
Oh yeah,
reasons
yeah.
why that,
It makes a
why
lot
that
more
couldn't
sense
happen.
now. I get
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So I think it would make yeah, I think it would help. What wouldn't help, I think, is the scene I was uncomfortable with was actually that striptease scene because I was like, it's her husband, yes, but like they've also lied to get her into this position. It felt very like coerced. I didn't like that part.
You're right. It did. Um, I'll tell you this though. Jamie Lee Curtis in the '90s was a smoke show. Good God, she was incredible. Um, so yeah, they find out. They made it safe. Everybody's out. Yay. Uh-oh. He's holed up. Aziz is holed up on the top of the building. And oh, by the way, he's got Dana, his daughter. So somehow, someone
Hmm.
either in DC captured his daughter and then flew her down to Miami, or he managed to make it all the way up to Miami,
Oh, true. I didn't even think of that.
get Dana, and then take her all the way down to Miami. I don't know. Or make it up, go up to DC, capture Dana, and make her and take her all the way down to Miami. Right? Who knows? So now he's got a. He doesn't steal. He requisitions a Marine Corps Harrier, right? And takes it to go.
Oh, this part was my favorite too because you get Tom Arnold being like, "Oh, he's really good at. He used to fly this. He's really," and then he's like, kind of bumping and having problems. He's like, "Oh, he's a little rusty. It's gonna take him a little bit."
That's a Tasker takeoff right there. Um, Gets to Miami, right? The building's been evacuated, but there's a Aziz is up on the roof. He's got another nuclear bomb. He's threatening to detonate in the middle of Miami, which is going to kill millions of people. Because obviously they don't have enough time to evacuate everybody. Um, Dana has to use the bathroom at one point, but they don't pay attention to her while he's filming his scene with the news crew, who they managed to sneak someone from Omega into the news crew as the cameraman.
Yes, I
Uh,
love this reveal when he like. I knew it was going to be him, but when he turns around and you're like, they're like, "Oh, you're like, yeah, we got the inside guy now."
Honestly, so I remember this. And even though I remembered what happened, I thought too, like he's been in the van the whole time. Like is he up for this? Like is he,
Yeah, I feel like they'd have to be trained. Like the way I like the way that they do this. So when he without a problem takes the guys out,
yeah.
but then he seems rattled afterwards. I feel like that is like, okay, my training kicked in, but now I'm still a little rattled of like, oh, I haven't had to do that.
But
you know?
like and yeah, I get that, but at the same time I'm also like like I don't know how long he's been in the van. As we find out later, Tom Arnold's been in the van 15 years, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious as to what his skills would really be like, how rusty his skills would be, you know. Um, so she takes the key, she runs off. There's a chase through the building. She ends up on a crane overlooking Miami, which is the scene we talked about earlier with Eliza Dushku, where she was injured in as retaliation for her speaking up. Um, but Dad comes to save the day, right? We get some great scenes here of dude in the office is trying to clean up, and of course, right after he cleans up the office, that's when the Harrier
Yeah.
crashes through, right? Dude ends up on the plane, gets his balls crushed, right? Um, Ends up on a missile and ends up getting fired at his buddies in a helicopter and killed. Harrier lands, he gets whisked away, the day is saved, right? We cut to A year later, family's happy, they're together, they're having a giant thumb wrestling war, which haven't had a good thumb wrestling war in a long time. Haven't had done thumb wrestling in a while, right? So
Yeah.
the family unit looks like they're happy, they're together. But Boris and Doris get called into action. So maybe she got recruited in because she knows so much now. So she
Yes.
right. Who
That's how I
knows?
took it.
So they're at a fancy dinner, right? They can't find their target, but but Doris notices somebody from her past, and we find what's his name? Trying to run
Simon.
his Simon, yeah, trying to run the same game on a lady. And they corner him. Makes it think like she has a gun to his under his chin. He pees himself and he scurries off. Movie ends. We hear the song come up and it's a tango again. And
Yes.
did you watch through like the first portion of the credits?
Yeah.
Yeah. So uh, credits come up as they're dancing, but then there's Tom Arnold.
Yeah. They're like, we don't have time for this.
You know what, Harry? I've been in the van 15 years. Next time you guys are in the van. End movie. So let's talk about some other notes from the movie. Let's see, what do we got here? Let's see. Douche, we talked about that. The affair, we talked about that. The accident, challenge. Wasn't supposed to drop the tape recorder. Okay, Tom Arnold didn't expect to get a role in the movie. He went to the audition mainly because he wanted to meet James Cameron. He did some scenes with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Cameron immediately noticed chemistry between the two. Afterwards, Tom joked to Cameron that, quote, Schwarzenegger's not that big, I think I can take him, which amused Cameron, and that sealed the deal. Initially, 20th Century Fox objected. Cameron didn't know, but at the time, his Tom Arnold's reputation wasn't very positive, mostly due to his marriage and the antics with then wife Roseanne Barr.
Right.
Cameron threatened to take the movie somewhere else if he couldn't cast him, and they relented. When he later learned about this, he was grateful for taking a chance on him, and apparently the three of them are still good friends to this day. Interview, Cameron said the idea for the film was suggested to him by Arnold, whose brother-in-law Robert Shriver, showing him a French movie called The Jackpot. He wanted to do a film like that because he thought it was the super secret agent character was interesting, right? Cameron he was surprised he had never seen Schwarzenegger suggest a movie based on a character. He watched the film. He loved the idea of presenting a secret agent with all these resources, but a family man as well. Basically asking the question, what would James Bond be if he got home and had to answer to his wife? Jamie Lee Curtis states that in Arnold Schwarzenegger's contract, he's supposed to get top billing, the title. Then it was supposed to have said also starring Jamie Lee Curtis. How things are billed in Hollywood is a big deal. It means a lot where people come in the billing thing. James Cameron finishes editing the film. He kind of sees that the film is more of like a domestic epic, so it's a film about marriage. Calls up Arnold, asks him if it's okay to put Jamie Lee Curtis's name next to his before the title. Arnold says, okay, sure, why not? Maybe not in those words, I'm paraphrasing. As Curtis said, in the world of show business, the credit is such a coveted, negotiable commodity that for Schwarzenegger to give her billing before the title was a real mensch move on his part. So once again, good guy Arnold Schwarzenegger strikes. We talked about Spencer Trilby based on Nick Fury. Cameron originally hired a team of writers to help him come up with the film's jokes. However, after being mostly unsatisfied, he let him go and decided to try his own hand at comedy. He rewrote the script from scratch and kept only 2 jokes from the team of writers. one of which was Arnold Schwarzenegger's famous line, "You're fired."
that that one, that's one of the ones they kept.
Yeah,
That was
one of
one
the
I
two they
almost like
kept.
rolled my eyes at. I chuckled at it, but I was like, okay.
It's a good line though. Like it might be a little too much, but like
You know what though? It's even more meta now because he ends up hosting the Celebrity Apprentice, doesn't he? After Donald Trump was
I think he
president,
does
and they
host a
did a
version of it
Celebrity
or something.
Apprentice. Arnold hosted it.
According to you know what, I think he might have said something about that in the past too, about how that was his line before it was Trump's, but I don't know. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, it was the first movie to have a production budget of over $100 million. At the time, it was the most expensive movie, breaking Terminator 2 Judgment Day. It lost the record next year to Waterworld, but Cameron got it back in '97 with Titanic. And I'm pretty sure at some point it's been built. It's been,
It's the Avatar
top.
movies now. It's probably back to James Cameron
Yeah, I
at
can't
this
imagine it's
point.
not. I would honestly, I would say it's either Cameron or the Marvel. One of the Marvel movies would probably have the top. Either Endgame or.
Let's see. I'll Google it real quick. The most expensive film made. It says Star Wars: The Force Awakens, $447 million.
Okay, I can kind of see that.
That's with unadjusted for inflation. Avatar is at 350 for the second Avatar movie. It's number 9 on the list.
Are there a couple of Avengers movies in there too?
So it goes Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, Rise of Skywalker, Fast X, Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, Avengers: Age of Ultron, Avengers: Endgame, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Avatar: The Way of the Water, and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania are the top 10.
Jesus, a couple I didn't see being up there, but
Adjusted for inflation, what's the big difference here? A couple Pirates movie, and Titanic would be number 9, adjusted for inflation.
honestly, I can see some of the Marvel ones mainly just for the effects. Like that. That's
And the cast. How much they had to pay Robert Downey Jr. is
yeah.
probably up there as well.
Production took sufficiently long for the movie. Took long for the movie to run significantly behind schedule. Tia Carrere's contract was only for 7 weeks, but because of long periods of shooting, she earned 7 months worth of pay. Bill Paxton was able to shoot a whole nother movie during breaks in filming. James Cameron was frequently called by Roseanne Barr, who demanded that he allow her soon-to-be ex-husband Tom Arnold return to the set of Roseanne. Simon and Harry are mirror images of each other. Simon is a salesman pretending to be a spy. Harry is a spy pretending to be a salesman.
Yes.
Originally, the writers wanted Schwarzenegger's character during the horse chase to chase the suspect through the reflecting pool to Washington Monument. The National Park Service said no.
Hmm.
After T2, Cameron initially wanted to make Spider-Man the movie from an R-rated script he had written, starring
Ugh.
Leonardo DiCaprio as Peter
R
Parker,
rated? No.
Leonardo DiCaprio as Peter Parker, and Arnold Schwarzenegger as Dr. Octopus. However, he thought the film would be technically challenging at this point. Kuroko Pictures, which I think is no longer in business, and wanted to do the movie on a much smaller budget that Cameron had envisioned. So he and Schwarzenegger made this instead. Kuroko collapsed, and the ensuing rights issues as well as other commitments caused Cameron to abandon Spider-Man, which was heavily rewritten and released in 2002, directed by Sam Raimi, as the
All right.
Spider-Man we know and love.
I know people say never bet against James Cameron, but an R-rated Spider-Man movie in like 94, 95, I would bet against that. It may have done well, but like I don't think I would enjoy that.
I think I'd be interested to see it though, with maybe with a young Leo and Schwarzenegger as Doc Ock. Like I'd be interested in that. Not
Yeah,
saying
I
he'd
mean
be
Schwarzenegger
great.
as Doc Ock is fine. I think that'd be a fine. It's probably definitely better than him being Mister Freeze and Batman and Robin a couple
Yeah.
years later. But
Obviously, Cameron and DiCaprio later worked all together in Titanic.
mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, here it is. While Cameron and writer Randall Frakes were doing research, they were surprised to find out how easy it was to smuggle weapons into a U.S. territory with only a small chance of detection. Much of the research was incorporated in the movie to make the terrorists feel like a genuine threat. However, they didn't want to give people ideas, so they decided to make the comedy as silly as the film would allow it to. All right, so let's go into some ratings. IMDb 7.3 out of 10. Not bad. Metacritic 63 on 17 critic reviews. 7.5 for user score. Rotten Tomatoes, or tomatoes as we call it over here, 70% on the tomato meter,
That
76%
surprised me.
on the popcorn meter.
I think how low that was actually surprised me because of, I guess I've heard really good things about the movie, and then if you look, obviously, also like we have to always preach, like when we're looking at these older movies, Rotten Tomatoes is not pulling from as many reviews, right? Because it's just
Yeah.
the ones that are archived, I guess, for
Yeah,
those type
from
of things. So
1994. That
right.
might
So
have
there's
been
less.
scanned and uploaded onto the web or something.
Right, there's less reviews. Like I think when we looked at Jingle All the Way, it was like 40 reviews or something, right? Like it's a lot less than what we get now when a movie comes out and their reviews are like 150, 200 reviews
Also, I
on
think
there
now
all the time.
with a lot of user scores, you might get, and not saying this is you, but say someone such as yourself who hears so much about the movie and maybe it's built up so much, and then they watch the movie, but then they're like,
Yeah,
this isn't as good as I thought. So instead of giving it like an 8 or a 9, right, they might review it as like a 5 or a 6 because
right,
it's
right.
it's it's they don't have the connection to it that someone of my age or someone else would. So that kind of that I think that might skew some of those reviews as well on the audience side because it's coming from a different generation that hasn't seen it or anything as much. So before we get to mine and yours, you said you have some more stats for us.
Yes. So we have a +1 for Schwarzenegger. So now he's up to 5. So we are now at he is the king of this podcast. He's 5 films: Terminator, T2, T3, Jingle All the Way, True Lies, all those movies we've discussed. He now has beat Sean Astin, who had 4. We have a +1 for James Cameron. So we now sit at 3 James Cameron movies, which is tied with Peter Jackson. So now Cameron and Jackson are the 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 height of our films. We've only had directors have 3 so far, and that's Peter Jackson. Of course, that's a trilogy. But James Cameron did T1, T2, did not do T3, and then this movie True Lies. Where else we kind of stand on the people that are right behind them, I don't think we're really going to probably add much to those. But number with 2 films, Jerry Zucker, who did Airplane, he also directed Rat Race, and then Richard Donner, who did Goonies and also did Scrooged. So,
Okay.
if we end up getting another Richard Donner movie, that could tie him with Peter Jackson and James Cameron. What we also have is a +1 for Eliza Dushku, who was also in Buffy. So she's up to 2 projects.
Okay.
Because she was in Zeppo. I think that was the
Yeah.
only episode we saw her in that time. And we actually now have a +1 for Bill Paxton, who's up to 2 because he was in Terminator 1.
Oh, that's right. He did
Uh,
have a small role in Terminator One.
yes. And I also have a new section called Adaptations. All right. So this is actually a +1 for adaptations because it's based off the French film uh, that we discussed. So we have 10 films that are adaptations. Well, more than that, really, because I counted Lord of the Rings trilogy as one, but that'd be like, that's one adaptation. It's based off the book series.
Yeah.
13 Ghosts, I count it because it was a remake. We have
Yeah.
Scrooged based off Christmas Carol. Into the Spider-Verse based off comics. The Suicide Squad was based off comics. Field of Dreams was based off a book. Grease was based off a musical. And True Lies based off the French film. And both TV shows we've done are adaptations. Buffy based off a movie and The Office being an American version of the UK show. So I just thought that was an interesting stat.
Okay.
And then I also gave us a +1 for franchises because this now has a TV show, like you said. Now the TV show is dead, but I added it being a franchise because it spun off its own thing. So franchises, we have 15 franchises: Lord of the Rings, Terminator, Star Wars, because we did Rogue One,
Yep.
Ghostbusters, Marvel, DC, Gladiator, because Gladiator 2
As a
just came
sequel.
out,
Yep.
Austin Powers, Spaceballs, because that's getting a sequel.
Yeah, I
Um,
forgot about that.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith has a TV show now, so I added that. Airplane has a sequel. I didn't know if I should count Ferris Bueller, but it did have a like CBS sitcom, so I counted that.
Well, you know what?
Buffy, because it's based off a movie and then became its own franchise, and then Grease because it also had a sequel and a TV show on top of the musical. So
I will say you can also count Ferris Bueller because all of John Hughes's movies are
take
kind of in their
place,
own
yeah,
universe in Sherman, Illinois, right?
yeah,
So
true,
that is literally like its own, like a John Hughes universe, right?
yeah.
So
So there you go. Those are some new stats I got, and what I was just working on as we're discussing this as well. I had a question on main characters. Like what letter their first name starts with? Okay, so I went through the list of movies and TV shows we've done, and I only counted like the leads. Okay, so if like Lord of the Rings, it's the Nine Fellowship. If it's Rat Race, it's the main people racing.
yeah,
If it's Buffy, I only counted her because she's the main girl. The Office, I counted the series regulars of the first of the season we watched, and then that. So the most letters is B actually so far. Buffy, Brand from Interstellar, Boromir from Lord of the Rings, Bloodsport from Suicide Squad, Blaine Cody from Rat Race, and Baze and Bodhi from Rogue One. So B has the most so far, and the only letters we don't have first names for so far are I, Q, U, XYZ.
yeah, all the stuff you
There
can't get
was
on
a character.
Scrabble.
There was a character on Rat Race that had a Z that was Wayne Knight's character, but he wasn't the main one of the main guys, so I didn't count him.
Yeah. All the hard letters on Scrabble.
Yeah. But I thought that'd be cool because maybe I'll pick a movie sometime if I know a character has a Z so we can mark that off. All right.
All right.
Before we get to, I guess, yeah, ratings, and
Yeah.
then we'll talk about
What's
um,
next?
the money, right? Like how much we would spend on this, and then we'll go into what's next.
So for me, once again, just like last time, this was a little longer than I thought. Like it was 2 hours and like 19 minutes or 15 minutes or something.
Yeah, when
Um,
he saves, when they get back and like the nuke blows up, I remembered in the back of my head that the guy knew about the daughter. So I'm like, this can't be over yet. But I'm like, it feels like a conclusion right now.
like I said, we didn't even get like the whole Helen thing until like 35 minutes into the movie. Like we saw her or
Even
whatever,
longer, I think. I think it was
but
like
like we
45,
didn't,
almost 40 minutes in.
yeah, we didn't get to her whole story portion until like that part. It. Plus, it's James Cameron, so he can kind of do what he wants. If he wants to make a movie 2 hours and 20 minutes, who's really going to tell him no, right? Um, for me, this is a 5-star movie. I mean, I grew up, I watched this. I was a teenager. Like I said, I was a stupid teenager who wanted to find a spy in Washington, D.C. Is there a nostalgia factor played into this? Yes. But like I said, Arnold was the biggest movie star of my childhood and of my lifetime, honestly. Um, and it's really just a good movie to shut my brain off, like just munch on some food and just watch and see stuff blow up and watch crazy things. Now, like I said, aside from the controversy with what happened with Eliza Dushku, that's unfortunate. The portrayal of Middle Easterners, and terrorists in that aspect doesn't hold up well, not good. Although James Cameron did say, because there was some controversy about that at the time it came out, said initially he wanted to be like Northern Irelanders. He was just honestly just wanted generic terrorists. Like he didn't specifically look for Middle Easterners. So maybe that kind of went on the casting thing, but they've gone through periods. Like in the '80s, like every bad guy was like a Russian or South African, right? It's unfortunate, it doesn't make it right, but that's just kind of how it is. Like, who are the bad guys we got now? Like Chinese and North Koreans or something like that, or are we
Yeah,
still with
probably.
Middle
Yeah.
Easterners? Um, but for me, it's a 5-star movie. Like I can watch it over and over again. It's definitely enjoyable. What do you say, Jordan?
Okay, what do you think I thought of it?
I'd say you might give it a 4. Like there might have been some slow parts, but I think you might have enjoyed it overall.
You're close. You're close. I gave it a 4.5 out of
Wow.
5 stars. So this is actually tied for second on my ratings. Just looking at my ratings, I have the best 5 star. The only 5 star I've given so far is Gladiator for like movies I'm seeing the first time.
Yeah.
Obviously, my nostalgia ones I'm giving 5 stars like every week.
Yeah.
um, 4.5 I have T2, Interstellar, and True Lies. Um,
There's one commonality in those. Arnie. In
well,
two
not
of them.
Interstellar.
In two of them.
Yeah. um,
Although I would say sci-fi. No, no, there's no sci-fi in True Lies. But, yeah.
the I mean, like I had Mr. and Mrs. Smith as 3 stars. This movie is much better than that. So like, but I feel like it's now they're both two spies, but this kind of like I feel is very similar to that. But I feel like
Yeah.
this movie did a lot of that stuff better than what Mr. and Mrs. Smith did. But yeah, so like, you know, if this is in like a $5 bin, I'd buy it. Would also probably pay more than that if I'm being honest. But
Do you think you would have enjoyed a sequel if they would have got all the main cast back?
yeah, I think so. I think these type of movies lend themselves to sequels very well because it's like, um, what am I trying to say here? It's like how they kind of set it up at the end for like they're still doing this stuff, they're having adventures.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, sequels have happened in the sense of like, these two have been doing stuff, they're continuing their work. Great. More for like when we're talking about the possibility of like a face-off sequel that from a few weeks ago, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't see that. Like I can't see that unless if it's just two totally different people. But if you're talking about getting like Travolta back or something, I'm like, why? Like why put him through that hell again? I'd be like, no, I'm not going back undercover with somebody else's face again.
Yeah.
Like so it depends. This type of movie I think lends very well because it is that spy type of James Bond esque where you can just continue to have sequels for it.
All right. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I figured you might enjoy this one more than some of the other ones I've given you. I'm glad to see
The
you're
only
in
thing
so
I'll
far.
say is like I mentioned with the scene with like Jamie Lee Curtis in the hotel and stuff, like I was starting to get worried around there. I just felt like it was kind of meandering at that part when he's like acting like she's a spy, and doing stuff. But then once they get kidnapped and then like you get to like the end plot stuff, it like picks back up again. But it was kind of like, when he started to lose focus on his job and like
There was a
that, I was
lull.
kind of
Yeah.
yeah, I was kind of like, all right, like the first 45 minutes is fun as hell because like I said, you got the opening, then you have like the chase scene through the mall and stuff. It's like insane with the horse race and all that kind of, like the horse chase and all that. I'm glad he did not jump with the horse because that would have been like when the Fast and Furious movies are trying to go from like skyscraper to skyscraper, and you're like, this is not something that really is happening. Like that would have been a bridge too far for me. So I'm
The
glad the horse.
motorcycle was kind of pushing it as it
It
was.
was. It was.
Okay, imagine you now have to get like you own the building or the hotel or whatever it is next door that happens to have a pool on the roof. That's expensive enough as it is, and that probably is a ton of maintenance. Now imagine some terrorist dude just drove a motorcycle and scurried off. You have to get a motorcycle out of that pool and out of the building, and then clean up or do whatever over there.
Yeah,
Like,
you probably have to drain the water, clean up, refill it. That's an
who knows what kind of
expensive.
damage it caused to the pool and things. But once again,
Right.
you have to get a motorcycle off of the roof of your building from a
Yeah.
pool. Like, can you imagine? Like, because I'm maybe the owner's probably at home, right?
Yeah,
Like,
gets the call.
he gets a call at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Hey, man, we got a problem. What? Hey, some dude crashed a motorcycle from the building next door into our pool,
But if
and
I'm
we
that guy making the call, I preface it a little bit. So this could have been a lot worse. We could have had a dead horse or a living horse in the pool as well here.
oh, the only thing I can say is, look, you're not gonna. You know what I would do? You're not gonna believe this. Just turn on the TV to Channel Four,
Yeah, just
and
turn it on.
I'll explain to you when you get here. Like,
Yeah. Oh man, he's like probably getting ready for bed, and it's like, damn, now I have to
he's
get
some old,
changed and
yeah, he's
drive
some
back
old
in.
billionaire somewhere, and he's like, "There's a motorcycle in my pool on the roof. Am I hearing this correctly? Like, what? What? No, no, you're not. No. What do we have next, sir?"
Okay, so I think we're gonna keep with the spy movies. I was just making a decision today, and we're gonna go with Casino Royale, the first of the new James Bond movies.
Okay.
This is actually probably going to be a +1 for adaptation because there was an original
Good.
James
Royale, yeah.
Bond movie called Casino Royale. But
Plus, it's also based off the novels, and
yes, and it's also a franchise. So we'll get some +1s next
yeah.
week. Um, but no, I think if I've been wanting to do this movie, and I feel like this is a cool transition point. Kind of how we hopped from Arnold to Arnold, and now it's like spy to spy is kind of where we're gonna go here.
Okay, so I will tell you this.
It's on Paramount Plus.
I also own it during the Prime Day sale last year. They
There you
had a
go.
box set of all the James Bond movies for like 30 or $40. It's either on Blu-ray or HD, and I was like, well, I mean, I'll always have something to watch. I'll pick that up. Sure, I'm losing money if I don't. Um,
I have them on Vudu.
I have never watched a full James Bond movie. I have seen clips and bits and pieces. I've seen a lot of the gifs. I mean, hey, we forgot it. What I don't think were there any memes or anything that have come out of this? We
I have
forgot about that.
I couldn't
Forgot
think of
about that
any
the
meme
last
that
couple of
came out of this.
times.
I don't think any of these have. Like we haven't really had. I haven't seen a lot of Jingle All the Way memes. I haven't seen a lot of Face Off memes because
I
there's some like the Pulp Fiction one. I see
Yeah,
that everywhere.
yeah.
You know.
I see a Terminator one every now and
Yeah.
then. Uh, I know there is the James Bond one of Sean Connery with the cigarette dangling in his mouth or whatever, or like a GIF of
Yeah.
that. But
I don't think there's any from the new ones.
I,
Yeah.
I've
So
never, I've never legitimately never watched a full James Bond movie. So
I
this,
hadn't until a few years ago. I guess whenever the last one came out, No Time to Die. I think it was 2022. Um, I bought a box set on Vudu of all of them because I had heard good things and it was cheap. And I was like, you know what? Let's just dive in. I want to watch this movie in theaters. I wanted to go to the movies to see something, but there was nothing really out, So I was like, I'm
and
just gonna
and
binge.
you didn't want to jump into the last Daniel Craig James Bond
Yeah,
movie
yeah.
without having knowledge of anything other than he's 007 and a spy. Like,
Right, right. So I was like, you know what? I'll buy this and I'll watch them. I'll probably like them, right? And I had not seen any previous ones. I feel like the new James Bond movies are a good jumping on point for people. There's not as many like silly gadgets that people make fun of for like Get Smart or like,
Austin Powers and things.
Austin Powers, stuff like that in this type of movie. So um but it's this is consistently one of the highest ranking of the Daniel Craig ones, probably most people's favorite one, and it's the first one.
Now, did
Um,
you start going all the way back to the original James Bond, or did you just
no,
start with the Daniel Craig?
I've only seen the Daniel Craig Bonds. I do want to go back and watch those other ones, but at that time, I'm like, it was probably like right before the movie came out, and I was like, you know what, this is like 5 movies or whatever. I'll just watch these, and then I'll
Yeah.
go see the movie next
You didn't
week
want
or
to watch
whatever.
22 movies before you hopped into
No, and like they're not like in the same like
most of
it's a
them aren't
reboot pretty
interconnected other
much.
than
Yeah,
just
yeah,
James Bond. Okay.
right. So yeah, so we'll dive into that world um, next time. And like I said, it's on Paramount Plus, which is confusing because it is a MGM produced movie, and I know at one point they were all on Prime, but I'm guessing it's reverted back to Paramount for some reason. These rights issues for everything is just so
That's one of the reasons I love my
crazy.
physical media so much.
Same.
Is just like you can't keep track of where stuff goes because it just disappears so often. Plus, like I went to go on my HBO the other day. I refuse to call it just Max. It makes no sense. They changed the name from HBO. Like, but they had a billing issue. I think with a lot of people where it was they'd logged people out and said they hadn't been caught up on their bill or something. So I couldn't get in, and then like 2 days later, they're like, "Oh, we made a mistake with a lot of people, so we're giving you like 7 free extra days." Our bad. So I was able to pick back up and watch my John Oliver from there. But it's another one of those things like if they go offline or something, you're like, no, no, can I watch this?
Hilariously, this is like the only James Bond movie not on Prime right now. So I don't know why. I own it, you own it, so we'll have no problem. But listeners, it's on Paramount as of this recording. It could be ending up on Prime at any day, though, if everyone else is over there. Who knows? But yeah.
Alrighty.
All right, all of our social media links are in the notes below. We've also joined Blue Sky, so we're over there. If you know Twitter's not your thing anymore, you can follow us over on Blue Sky Films. Very first time is what I did the handle for, so you can find us over there, and we'll catch you next time when which is after New Year. So everybody have a great holiday season. We'll catch you after New Year's, and we'll watch Casino Royale.